All right, guys, I know this is the moment you guys have been waiting for, some new information. The way that I wanted to do it, I wanted to see if you guys could see what the secret method was first. That way it'd be easier for me to do the puzzles for you. And I wanted to show you how they worked in the Chicago, Cleveland, and Boston puzzles. Now we're going to take what I've shown you and we're going to apply that to other puzzles. First one being Milwaukee here. One thing I want to tell you guys before we get started, you're going to see a lot of duplicity in a lot of these puzzles. If you see it multiple times, it must mean that it's important. For example, in Chicago, we had a line that said, "And to Congress, R is known." When we were going down North Street in Boston, we actually hit Congress. Another example is in Cleveland, they talk about Socrates, Pindar, and Apelles. In Boston, they talked about Thucydides and Xenophon. So we have ourselves some ancient Greek people. So you're going to be seeing a lot of duplicity in one form or another. There's going to be a few in this puzzle, and I'm going to point it out to you guys as it becomes available. But I just want you to keep in mind that information. Also, if there's something that you read that you didn't understand, it would be in your best benefit to actually go and research who the people are, who the buildings or what the buildings were. Get an idea, educate yourself, because I think that that's what a lot of people aren't doing. They're not taking the time to understand what this stuff is about. A lot of people just want to find a treasure and get a little 5 minutes of fame, which is cool. That's what I wanted to do too. But, if you do the research, you're going to put yourself in a better position to find stuff. So with that being said, we're going to get started right here in Milwaukee. I'm going to be starting over here on the picture side because we've already done most of the map. And when we catch up on the map, then we'll do both. So we start out, view the three stories of Mitchell. And here we have a picture right in front of Mitchell Hall. There's nothing on the picture that looks quite like Mitchell Hall. But first, before we start, who was Mitchell? So if we take a look on the map, there's actually a historical marker, number 308. And if we look at what it says, it actually talks about who built Mitchell Hall and that it was named after a distinguished Milwaukee family. And then afterwards, Mitchell Hall continued to be called Old Main. So we know that Mitchell Hall was named after a famous family. Well, who could that be? And here we actually have Alexander Mitchell, who was a Wisconsin politician. If you read a little bit about him, though, you'll see that he started his career in banking, and then he became the president of the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railway. And if we remember back on the Chicago puzzle, we know that railroads were something that were talked about. And to Congress, R is known, the railroad, and then we also crossed over the railroad again by the Art Institute. So here we have somebody who was involved in railroads as well. Now, what we want to do is we want to try and match this point up on the map because we know that this is where we start. And if we look on the map, we're going to see only one building, really. And this building right here is actually the Milwaukee City Hall. This building right here is not what we're looking for. But if we take a closer look, we'll take a look at the outline of what Mitchell Hall looks like. We can see that it's kind of in the shape of Oklahoma standing on its side. And then you have Curtin Hall up here. And if we look down here, zooming in, of course, it might be a little tough to see, but we can see a bit of an outline here. It goes around and then of what kind of appears to be very similar to Mitchell Hall and Curtin Hall. One thing I'm going to say about this puzzle right here is that I believe that it's inverted, which means it's backwards. A lot of these things you're going to see going the opposite way. Like here we have the millstone, the walking stick, and the key, Milwaukee. We're going from right to left as opposed from left to right. A little strange, but that's what it's going to be. That's not going to stop us from getting to where we need to go. So if we say that this is our starting point right here, Mitchell Hall. Next it says, as you walk the beating of the world at a distance in time from three who lived here. Well, personally, if Kenwood was the beat of the world and this circle right here would be kind of like a speaker and we're walking in this direction, that's where we would want to go. The three people who used to live there, Hackett, Summit, and Shepherd. Woman playing harpsichord, Marietta Robusti. And if we pull up a picture again of Marietta Robusti, we can see that the coloring is very similar to the flower. But in any case, we know that we're going this way. I don't believe that the people are as important as the actual location. So we'd be going in this direction right here. Next, it says, step onto nature, cast in copper. Well, this part, if we're looking at the park right here, we know that we'd be stepping onto nature, going onto Lincoln Memorial Drive. But I want you to take a good look at the face of this person right here. To me, it looks like the hairline and the cloak are in the same kind of shape as Lincoln Memorial Drive. And the one thing that really stood out to me was the hairline right here. It kind of looks like a shark's fin. You can also see that shark's fin right here. So what I believe that this area is right here is a reflection of the person right here. And if that's the case, we know that we'd be stepping onto nature, going down, casting copper. This is like a penny right here, the coloring. And then it also is reminiscent of the Grand Staircase by Alfred C. Klass, where it splits in the middle. We can see that this is split in the middle. So if we were going down and around nature, casting copper, it would take us to right about here. So this is the point where, right around where Josh Gates and the gentleman he went with got a little confused. Next it says, ascend the 92 steps, then after climbing the Grand 200. Well, what does that mean, climbing the Grand 200? The next clue after that is pass the compass and reach the foot of the culvert. Well, that would probably take us over here to North Point Lighthouse. And if we put boots on the ground over here, let's take a look. We can see we have ourselves a magnificent lighthouse. The one thing we know about lighthouses is there are no elevators in there. So I'd be willing to bet that with no elevator in here, you're going to have a spiral staircase. And I'd be willing to bet that there are probably about 200 steps in here. I don't live in Milwaukee. I don't live anywhere close. So if somebody who is close by wants to take that walk and do the count, that'd be great. But for now, we're going to say that the Grand 200 is this lighthouse tower. You'd be coming down the steps. And if we were to look over here, if you look at the arm sleeve, you can kind of see what I believe is the lighthouse right there. You could see kind of a pillar and then two little waves, which is similar to the top of the roof here on the house. So if that's the case, we'd be going down and we would be at the lighthouse. Next it says, pass the compass and reach the foot of the culvert below the bridge. Well, if we were to look on the map again, we could see that there are only two bridges. You have one right here, which is called the Lions Bridge, and another bridge right over here. One thing I will say is that I know a lot of people think that you'd be going into the culvert and trying to dig around here. My personal opinion is that's not the case. I don't believe that Byron would bury a treasure somewhere in an unmarked area. I believe that he wanted to have that treasure in an area that was well maintained. That way it would be easier to find. If he buried it somewhere out here in the middle of some brush or whatnot, it's very possible that the Parks and Recs could either chop down the trees or maybe they wanted to redevelop this area at a later time, build some structures here. So to me, it just wouldn't make any sense for him to come down and bury it in a place that the topography could change at any time. You know, you want to make sure that it's in a place that's easy to find. So my personal belief is that in this area is where we want to stay. Now, that last clue, I think it's just referencing the bridges, not saying, hey, go down the bridges, but pass the compass, reach the foot of the culvert below the bridge. Now it says walk 100 paces southeast over rock and soil. So if we were at the North Point Lighthouse, the only compass that I can see is, you know, this line right here is perfect north, south, east, and west. So this is as close to a compass as we're going to get. And if we were to walk southeast from here, it would take us close to this side of the bridge. So I believe that if we walk 100 paces, which isn't that much, we would probably end up very close to here. And the next clue is to the first young birch, past 3, staying west. Well, if we have boots on the ground, I think the only birch trees of any real significance are going to be these 2 birch trees right here. I don't really see any birch trees anywhere else in the area, and we want to make this as simple as it gets. So this birch tree right here is what I believe it is. Also, if we take a look over here, we can see what appears to be a tree, and it's pointing in this direction. It's pointing due east, which, if you were to look on a clock, would be around 3 o'clock. Now, assuming that we were right here, if this was 6 o'clock, this was 12 o'clock, this would be 3 o'clock. So if we are passing 3, staying west, we would be going here. The birch tree would be on our west, and we would end up right around here at 3 o'clock. And we'll just say we go here to the birch trees. And right here we have a bit of a horseshoe structure right here. Unfortunately, we don't have any pictures and we can't get any closer, so we can't tell what this truly is. In the book, it does say, look for a letter from Wonderstone's hearth. This could well be the Wonderstone's hearth right here, and it might have a letter here. I think when they were looking at the pillars around, it had letters on them, so quite possibly it could be right there. And if we were to come over right here, I do believe that this area right here is very similar to here. The sleeve kind of makes an outline around, and you would have this hearth area right here. So if that was the case, we'd be coming from the birch tree and going in this direction. Now, the last clue here is, on a proud tall fifth at its southern foot, the treasure awaits. Now, I know if we were to put boots on the ground here, Josh Gates and the gentleman he was with, they determined that Leo the lion was the 5th sign of the zodiac, and they decided to dig at the foot of the lion. They weren't able to find anything. The lion does kind of have the shape of the face up here of the person, a little bit of a mane, a little bit of a face, but I don't believe that's what it is. And in order to figure out what we're talking about, we really need to take a look at this picture right here. So if we were going in this direction and we pass the hearth, I want you to take a look what we find right in the middle of the sleeve. Does that look like anything that you've seen? Kind of looks like one of these pillars right here, doesn't it? So if we were to look around, here's the Wonderstone's hearth, and if we zoom out and count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's perfect. Is this the 5th right here? Well, if we're coming from left to right, it is. I would say that it is buried really close right here. Or obviously, we know that this is going backwards. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you could be right over here. In any case, what I believe is that in between the hands of this juggler or magician or whatever you want to call him, that's the pillar right there. So if that's the case, we would just bring ourselves over, and right at the base, that's where we want to be. So can we do the same thing on the map? Well, let's take a look and see. Now, here we are on the map. We'll start over at Mitchell Hall, Kenwood Beating of the World. 3 people used to live there, woman with harpsichord. Going down Lincoln Memorial Drive to the Grand Staircase. Before I go any further, I just want to make a mention. Here we are on Lincoln Memorial Drive. If you remember back in the Chicago puzzle, we also talk about Lincoln. Where L sits and beyond his shoulder is the fair folks treasure holder. So that's our second mention of Lincoln, which must mean it's important. Also, here we are at Lake Park. If we did our research previously, we would find that this is not the only lake park that we've been to. If we go back to Grant Park in Chicago, which we've already solved, we would see that originally Grant Park was known as Lake Park. And the only reason they renamed it was in honor of President Ulysses S. Grant. So Grant Park now, but back in the day it was known as Lake Park. So there's a little bit of duplicity and similarities that we found once again. But getting back to our map, we'd be going around, hit the grand staircase, go to the North Point Lighthouse and go up the lighthouse, and then when we came back down, go towards the Wonderstone's Hearth, which is right about there, and then just go up a little bit to get to that Proud Tall Fifth, which we find in between the hands of the magician or the juggler. Now, I also told you that if you looked at the hands or the body of the fair person, you'd be able to see a number. Well, if we take a look here, we'll see that there is no fair person or creature or animal here. We do have this bee or cicada right here, but this is way too light and too hard to see, so we're going to have to assume that the number is going to be made in the on the person. And if we were to zoom in on the hand, let's just see what we can do. There, I believe we have a 2. So there may be a better 2 out there. If you guys could find it, you're more than welcome to. That'd be great. But for the sake of what we're trying to do, on the map we have this elongated 2. It'd probably look a little better if it started right here, but there's our 2. Again, if we do this way, we have our 2. Although it's reversed, that's still going to be our 2, and then we have a 2 in the hand. So 2, 2, 2. One more note, this was one of the parks that I talked about with Josh Gates, and he said that ever since his episode of Expedition Unknown there, a lot of people have been digging in the park without permission. I just want to say, if you guys want to go digging, bring a prodder. It's probably a lot easier. If you can't get a ground penetrating radar, that'd be the best thing, obviously, but bring a prodder. And if you're going to dig a hole, just make sure to fill it. I mean, we're not trying to make a mess or anything. We're just trying to find ourselves a gem and a needle in a haystack. But, just clean up after yourselves. And, that's it. So best of luck to you if you're trying to dig here. I know it's probably cold and freezing in Milwaukee right now, but springtime is around the corner. Maybe this will help you find it. Next, we're going to be doing Charleston. So thanks a lot. Stay tuned.